Chapter 21. Nicholas stared at the smoking crater where Lily had been. He felt a profound sense of awe, swiftly followed by a wave of crushing disappointment. Dante's unimaginable power was a force unlike anything he had ever witnessed in his long life. The fireball was incredibly destructive, but even more impressive was the fact that Dante managed to unleash such a powerful spell without needing to chant or invoke its name. However, this power was unleashed so unpredictably that it nearly cost Captain Amedria her life when Dante accidentally hit her, leaving a bad taste in his mouth. It was a harsh reminder of the dangers of uncontrolled strength. It reinforced his belief that he needed to be here as a guiding hand for Dante. Dante stood there, shaking from the lingering effects of the powerful magic explosion, his eyes filled with fear and a chilling understanding. He had done it again. He had lost control, and his overwhelming power had taken down Amedria, who was desperately trying to defend everyone from that heartless killer. His gaze snapped from the smoking crater to Amedria, lying motionless on the charred ground, her sword glinting nearby, her body stiff from his residual wayward magic. He was suddenly engulfed by a heavy wave of guilt that felt even more immobilizing than the pain Lily had caused him. Rourke, now fully healed from his earlier injuries, stood a few yards away from Nicholas. He was gripping his axe tightly, his eyes fixed on the smoldering crater. The chaotic fight seemed over now, and a heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the sound of ragged breathing. A low growl began to rumble from the crater, deepening and becoming more guttural, making the ground shake beneath them. Lily's body started to change and grow. Her muscles twisted and bulged under her scorched skin, which ripped apart in horrifying strips, revealing thicker hide underneath. Her bones cracked and stretched with nasty pops, echoing like a whip in the stillness. Her hands and feet expanded, and her nails transformed into sharp black claws that dug into the ground. Her jaw unhinged, with her teeth turning into monstrous, razor-sharp fangs. Her smooth black hair thickened into a dense, midnight fur that spread across her body, covering her wounds and sealing her flesh. Her eyes grew larger and more luminous, becoming more predatory. In just a blink, Lily morphed into a massive black tiger, and she was huge, easily double the size of a war horse. Her powerful muscles rippled with raw strength, each movement hinting at the chaos she could unleash. The air around her was thick with an intense primal energy. With a roar that seemed to echo in everyone's bones, she let out a primal challenge that shook the leaves from the trees and sent birds flying in a panic. You could almost feel the ground quaking beneath the weight of her incredible presence. Nicholas's eyes went wide as he took in the sight of the beast before him, now transformed.
A primal beast form,
he exclaimed, his voice barely cutting through the deafening roar of the tiger.
Only those with noble or royal blood can achieve this. Her strength and resilience are going to be unimaginable.
His thoughts raced back to ancient texts and long-lost legends about beast kin. Everything had changed. This wasn't just any assassin. She was a force of nature, a being brimming with untamed power, and a true descendant of the most powerful among them. The teasing and games she had played earlier were just the warm-up. The soldiers froze as their faces drained of color. The sheer size and ferocity of the black tiger was an overwhelming nightmare. This was a battle they were not equipped for, a creature far beyond their training or weaponry. Their meager numbers felt even more insignificant against such a colossal threat. Dante was engulfed by an overwhelming sense of panic, a visceral wave that rolled through him as his stomach churned uncomfortably. It was like a storm brewing within, fueled by fear and urgency. He inhaled deeply, grounding himself for just a moment, and then sprinted toward Amedria, who lay motionless on the ground. When he reached her, he dropped to his knees beside her still form, his heart racing with a mix of anguish and dread. As he looked at her, his wide eyes brimmed with desperate concern. He examined her face, searching for any signs of life, then shifted his gaze down over her body, and it was like a knife twisting in his chest. A wave of guilt washed over him, reminding him of how he had ignored his grandfather, Nicholas's teachings, his recklessness to show off, and the consequence of nearly costing Amedria her life. He reached out his trembling hands, hovering just above her. A silent plea for forgiveness etched clearly in his eyes. He knew he had to do everything within his power to fix this terrible situation. His mind raced chaotically, desperately searching for a solution. He knew his grandfather was currently busy with the assassin and wouldn't be available to attend to wounds, which meant the responsibility of saving Amedria rested squarely on his shoulders. He felt as if time was slipping through his fingers. Amedria's eyes remained eerily open, leaking tears as her body trembled and spasmed. Her breathing was labored and raspy, a painful sound that gripped Dante's heart with pain. Fresh blood continued to flow from the grievous wound on her stomach, painting the ground beneath her a dark crimson. Dante bent closer, examining her back, and noted the horrifying sight of her armor. It seemed to have melted into her skin from the lightning attack. It was clear to him that she must be in agonizing pain. Then, amidst his frantic thoughts, a clear, vivid memory surfaced. Dante recalled an incident long ago from his childhood, one that made him learn how dangerous the nature of his uncontrolled mana was. Back then, he had been filled with a burning desire to learn magic, yet his enthusiasm was met with caution and refusal. His grandfather deemed him too young for such power, telling him time and again that he wasn't ready. Even his mother had turned him down, her eyes filled with apprehension over the chaotic magic that lay dormant within him. But Dante was nothing if not persistent. Undeterred, he had scoured the old library in secret, poring over dusty tomes filled with arcane knowledge, yearning to unlock a world that felt just out of reach. On that fateful day, he had been captivated by the chapter on summoning and, in a fit of youthful foolishness, attempted to bring forth a small spirit, using nothing more than paper, ink, and blood as a conduit. The stack of paper had twisted and molded, coming alive as it formed into a hunched humanoid creature. A surge of pride swelled within him as he looked upon his creation, marveling at the darkly comic figure that stood before him, an eccentric little creature made entirely from paper. He raised his hand, sending forth a mental command, and just like that, the creature sprang to life, dancing and twirling to a melody only it could hear. The joy bubbled up within him, and he laughed heartily, finding the sight utterly ridiculous. But things went sideways quickly when he commanded the creature to stop. The creature obeyed, freezing mid-twirl, and in that moment of admiration, the creature's body shifted. As he examined his handiwork closely, he was struck by his mere thoughts of it looking like a goblin, made it transform more into one. He thought back to his mother's words of his magic being too dangerous. How can this be dangerous? Dante thought to himself. Suddenly, its eyes glowed a fierce red, and it let out an unsettling growl that sent a chill down Dante's spine. Caught utterly off guard, he stumbled backward, panic choking him as he desperately tried to will the creature to return to a harmless pile of paper, yet nothing happened. Without warning, the goblin lunged at him, its paper edges sharp as blades, slicing into him mercilessly. His cries pierced the air, calling for help as he scrambled to get away. Guards rushed in, their expressions turning from confusion to horror upon seeing him wrestling with the menacing paper creature. They sprang forward, brandishing spears and swords, but the goblin seemed to dodge their attacks with ridiculous ease, healing from whatever wounds they did inflicted with astonishing speed. All the while, Dante was chased by this nightmare creature, unable to escape it. Moments later, just before things spiral wildly beyond control, his mother barreled through the frenzy, shoving guards aside as she approached. With a flick of her fingers, she summoned a small fireball that incinerated the creature in an instant, and in the aftermath, she fell to her knees beside Dante. Cradling him in her arms, she whispered a word that resonated with him, a word that shimmered with ancient power. As her soothing green light enveloped him, He felt warmth spread through his body, healing his paper cuts in one moment. That childhood memory was deeply cherished, and perhaps why it was so easy for him to recall it now. He refocused on Amedria. He concentrated with all his might, reaching deep into the recesses of his mind to remember that precious word. And then, like an old friend returning home, it came back to him, a word he had all but forgotten.
Cathru.
The giant black tiger took a single, slow, deliberate step forward, her massive paws making thunderous thuds on the charred ground. Her eyes fixed on Nicholas before flickering to Dante, a silent promise of utter destruction in their depths. Rourke's axe felt impossibly light in his grip. This beast had almost ended him, then toyed with Amedria, the captain he respected more than anyone. Rourke charged the black tiger with surprising speed. His axe arced downwards, aiming for Lily's exposed hide. To his surprise, she remained still, casting her gaze downward at him with an air of superiority as he rushed toward her. The powerful blow landed with a loud smack that echoed like a tree crashing to the ground. It should have split the creature in two, or at least left a gaping wound. Lily shrugged it off the blow as it merely glanced off her thick, matted fur. She didn't even flinch. Her sheer mass and the natural resilience of her primal form made Rourke's strong blow feel like a pebble thrown against a wall. Rourke, refusing to yield, immediately struck again with a desperate, furious blow aimed for the same spot, hoping to exploit any weakness. This time, he heard a low grunt from the massive beast and a flicker of something in her luminous eyes. She winced, a tiny, almost imperceptible twitch of her massive head. It was enough to give him hope. With a casual, almost dismissive swipe of her monstrous paw, Lily smacked him away. This time, Rourke was ready for the hit and managed to raise his axe just in the nick of time. Still, the sheer power of the impact knocked him off his feet and sent him flying backward. He didn't crash into the ground quite as hard as he had before, but he still slid more than 50 feet, finally stopping when he slammed into a sturdy tree. Dazed and a bit disoriented, he was still very much alive. Gritting his teeth, he pushed himself up and stood tall once more.
Round 2 already. I guess the warm-ups are over.
Lily was definitely stronger now. You could see it in every move she made, which held an impressive force. However, that incredible size and power seemed to have made her a bit less agile than she used to be. Nicholas wasted no time. He shot upward, his slight frame pulsing with concentrated arcane energy.
Soldiers, fire any arrows or projectiles you have. Don't worry about where they land,
he shouted. He unleashed a fierce onslaught of wind, and despite their fear, the soldiers complied. Arrows, some laced with rough poisons, were launched at the enormous tiger, targeting its glowing eyes and open jaws. While they were hardly enough to truly threaten the creature, every little distraction could make a difference. Lily swatted them away as if they were mere flies, but when they fell, the wind spirited them back up, swirling them around Lily. She laughed, grinning widely at Nicholas.
What do you think you're doing with those sticks? Trying to groom my fur? Ha ha ha,
Lily said in an amused tone. She brushed aside another wave of arrows effortlessly. The speed and force of them were almost comical, but then she felt the wind pick up. Nicholas raised his hands higher, and the gusts around her grew stronger. Suddenly alert, her instincts kicked in. The winds began to swirl around Lily like a tornado, a chaotic mix of debris, rocks, arrows, and branches, whirling together in a violent dance. Slowly, cuts started to appear across her formidable body, and she let out a frustrated growl. Rourke lunged forward, plunging into the swirling chaos of the tornado's savage winds. He contorted his body, flowing with the tempest like a dancer in a storm. Lily's eyes widened in shock as his initial strike pierced her tough fur hide, drawing blood with disturbing ease. He twirled like a menacing top, propelled by the furious winds at a breathtaking speed. Nicholas hadn't anticipated Rourke's daring maneuver, yet he swiftly adjusted to the unexpected help. His focus sharpened on Rourke, striving to manually guide his movements, ensuring he could navigate the whirlwind safely and breathe within its relentless grasp. Nicholas was pulling from his diminished mana well, knowing each spell drained him further, but there was no other choice. Dante's hands hovered over Amedria's unconscious form, his gaze fixed on her pale, still face. He had to fix this. He had to heal her. Heal her. His thoughts were in chaos, and his emotions felt like a wild storm, all fueling his magic. He pictured healing, mending, restoring her, making her well again.
Cathru,
Dante said resolutely. A shimmering green light erupted from his hands, enveloping Amedria. The paralysis instantly vanished, her muscles relaxing. Her skin glowed with a healthy radiance, the faint lines of fatigue and stress smoothing out. Then the green light intensified, becoming almost blinding, pulsing with a deep, vibrant emerald hue. Dante was forced to shut his eyes due to the brightness. The light swirled and pulsed around her. Then with a soft pop it faded, leaving behind a subtle lingering scent of fresh spring growth. Amedria stirred and slowly opened her eyes, blinking as she caught sight of Dante. There was something different about her. Although her gaze was still keen, her face appeared softer and less worn. The strong lines that usually marked her features, evidence of years of experience and authority, had softened, giving her a more refined look. When she sat up, her posture was surprisingly light and youthful. It was as if she had transformed from a seasoned warrior into a vibrant 18-year-old. Dante's healing energy, fueled by his deep feelings, appeared to work wonders on her, seemingly erasing a decade or two in the process. Amedria touched her face, then her arms, a flicker of confusion in her eyes.
What happened?
She murmured, her voice sounding oddly higher-pitched, less resonant than she remembered. Before Dante could stammer out an explanation, Amedria's natural instincts, honed over years of command and combat, kicked in. She saw a monstrous black tiger engulfed in an intense game of wind.
What in the world? Where did that monster come from? And what happened to that assassin?
Amedria exclaimed, clearly taken aback.
meet Lily.
Dante replied, gesturing toward the massive black tiger.
The beast woman you've been fighting. Looks like she was holding back and is finally transformed.
He added.
How long was I out?
Not too long. I came over and managed to heal you. You should be grateful. I even made you look better.
Dante said, folding his arms with a smug smirk. Amedria didn't respond right away. She studied his expression, sensing a disconnect between his words and his demeanor. Just then, a deafening roar cut through the air, and they both turned to see Lily. Though the tornado gnawed at her formidable health, Nicholas had made a miscalculation. He had anchored her to the ground. Lily slammed her clawed paws into the waterlogged ground beneath her. Nicholas's water serpent spell, cast earlier, had left the soil soft, still saturated. Mud, pebbles, and dirt erupted. Her forelegs became a blur, tearing into the softened ground with ferocious speed. Nicholas felt a sudden, inexplicable tremor in the ground. A geyser of muddy water shot upward from the heart of his vortex. Confusion flickered across his features. By the time his gaze dropped, bewilderment turning to dawning horror, it was too late. Nicholas dispelled the spell, causing the winds to fade away. Lily had vanished, leaving behind a massive hole in the ground as the only evidence of her presence. The ground still shook beneath them, and everyone braced themselves, waiting for an imminent attack. The rumbling was particularly intense where Dante and Amedria were sitting. Out of nowhere, the ground exploded, and a huge, toothy maw shot up, aiming to tear apart anything in its path. Amedria noticed her sword just a few feet away. She sprang to her feet, surprisingly nimble, almost as if she were floating, and snatched up her blade. Despite her muscles being younger and less conditioned than she was accustomed to, they felt surprisingly flexible, as if the weight of years of strain had been lifted. She charged forward to confront the monstrous jaws, her sword moving more swiftly than ever before, but as she lunged, something felt off. It was harder to control her movements than it should have been. While she was faster, her strikes lacked the power and effortless precision that came from her true age. The muscle memory and fine-tuned adjustments she had honed over decades of training and battles were still sharp in her mind, but her younger body struggled to keep pace. Her muscles weren't as tough or trained as they should have been. She overextended her lunge. Her swing felt lighter than it ought to, like trying to fight in an unfamiliar body. She nearly fell into the awaiting maul of Lily, but managed to twist her body and adjust. Nicholas observed the incredible and unexpected outcome of Dante's healing spell, his eyes wide with a mixture of shock. He was slightly puzzled, seeing, as he had never taught Dante any healing spells. A fresh wave of concern came over Nicholas as he saw the new dynamic. Lily was a terrifying opponent. Rourke was still recovering from the dizzying experience of his spinning attack. The soldiers were not much help against the beast. Amidria was back in the fight, but clearly not at her peak. He turned to Dante.
Dante! Forget holding back. We need raw power. Get angry at everything that has led to this. Channel that chaotic mana, that raw power, directly at the beast woman. Unleash it. Let it go rampant.
Nicholas yelled.
I can't do that. I'll get everyone killed.
Dante said with a worried tone. His mind raced, thinking of all the potential disasters he could accidentally create.
Don't worry about that. I'll act as a safety net for your magic. I never thought I'd say this, but Dante... Go crazy,
Nicholas said, extending his hand with a thumbs up. Dante looked at his grandfather, then at the monstrous black tiger that threatened to obliterate them all. He was the cursed prince. His mana well, a maelstrom of unpredictable power. This time, he wouldn't try to control it. He would embrace the chaos. He would become the storm.